One, two, three.
Yes, sir. Doing well. Good to see you. Yes, sir. Oh, busy. Quite busy.
I remember those days. I'm just too lazy to do it.
Well, I'm still trying.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's October 22nd agenda session meeting. I now call us to order. Can I get a motion to approve? Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to ordinances on final reading, which has already been read into the record. Item 5A and B. Now we'll move on to ordinances on first reading, Public Works and Transportation. Actually, it's a transportation item, A, which also was read into the record last week. Now we'll move on to resolutions. 7A, please, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the chief of the Chattanooga Fire Department to execute a software upgrade agreement with Motorola for hardware and software in the amount of $266,879 and a maintenance purchasing agreement in the amount of $296,542.50 for support of the fire station alert system for a total amount of $563,421.50.
Seeing no questions, we will now move on to item 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointments of Kimberly Nicole Lacey and Beverly Nichols as special police officers unarmed for the McCamey Animal Center to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
Now we'll move on to item number C.
A resolution authorizing the City of Chattanooga to accept a grant from the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth to fund a project Adolescent Intervention and Development Management through the Family Justice Center for an amount not to exceed $34,416.
Item D.
A resolution authorizing the City of Chattanooga to accept a grant from the Department of Justice Office of Victims of Crime to fund the creating a new Pathways of Hope and Healing project managed through the Family Justice Center for an amount not to exceed $688,160.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we'll move on to Public Works and Transportation items E, F, and G, which has already been read into the record as of last week. That closes this part of our agenda session. We have no departmental reports at this time. So now we'll move on to our special presentations. We have Department of IT, Police, and Fire here to talk about our Take Me Home program. And today we have two distinguished gentlemen. Well, we have two people here from the state. We have Representative Mike Carter and State Senator Todd Gardenhire. And who else is part of this party this afternoon? IT, police, fire.
We're going to bring them down and let them talk in just a second, if that's okay. When you said distinguished, I thought, golly, they're not let us talk. So anyway, I appreciate this. This is a day that Senator Gardenhire and I have been looking forward to for some time. I wanted each one of you all to realize that government can work, and occasionally it does some really good things. And this is a good thing. This would not have occurred without you, without your IT department, and without the mayor's agreement. And so something wonderful has happened in Tennessee. And I don't want to brag about anything, but I think people that have worked hard need to be pointed out. They won't blow their own horn. In fact, I couldn't even get them all to come here today. Most of the people in the IT department said, well, I'm right in the middle of this program. I think I'll just stay here and work on it. So that's pretty dedicated. I got a call one night about 7 o'clock from a gentleman named Roddy Coe. I was watching some stupid thing on television, and he said, would you mind to have a cup of coffee with me? I've never met you. I want to meet you. I said, be glad to do so. He said, I have something very important to discuss with you. And I said, well, we'll do that sometime. And he said, well, what about 20 minutes at Wired Coffee? And so I went, and he told me about his son who is autistic and non-communicative. Now, Councilman Byrd, that used to work with me, realizes that when you get pulled over and you can't communicate and you can't identify yourself, the state law says you shall be taken to jail. Well, that's very difficult for us to understand that, but it has a very good meaning, because then thugs and people with warrants would simply not carry ID and not respond, and they'd get away. So there's a good reason for it. However, he described his son and told me about his inability to communicate. And I said, oh my goodness, certainly this is something we need to work on, but where do we get all this done? You're talking about moving mountains. And he said, the city of Chattanooga's IT department. And I said, okay. And he said, do you know of a fireman named Skylar Phillips? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, he has an autistic son, and he's leading the charge on this. If you will just get the bill passed, we will get this done. And so you all, through your departments and through the encouragement and the funding you've given them and the enthusiasm that I've seen from them throughout this project, have done a great thing. Now, when you're pulled over, if you cannot communicate, you cannot identify yourself, and your family has put you in the database that you all created, a slideshow comes up. And so that officer can put general descriptions in there, and it starts slideshowing those pictures. And so when it comes up to you, you hit that, and it has the contact information, and you call the family to come and get them. That helps Sheriff Hammond, that he doesn't have to process people in and out of jail, which a dear friend of mine, right before we passed this bill, spent 22 hours at the Hamilton County Jail. First time he'd ever left his home. He's had dementia 7 years. First time he's ever left. But he did, and no one knew him, and he couldn't identify. So that's what the city of Chattanooga has done through their various groups. After I met with Roddy and talked to Captain Phillips, I had lunch the next day across from your mayor. And I told him how incredibly impressed I was with everyone I'd met, and would he agree to distribute this throughout the state of Tennessee if we could pass a bill immunizing the city of Chattanooga from any good faith loss that might occur indirectly from this. Senator Gardenhire carried the bill in the Senate, and he's holding a framed copy of the bill, which provides the city of Chattanooga with that good faith immunity. It's rarely granted, as you know. We're very reluctant to give immunity. This bill in the House passed with 32 votes. There's 33 people. One was absent. In the House, 99 votes. So it's a wonderful thing, and I'd like to call up Donna and let her tell you who all was involved in this and anything else that she would like to say. Government can work, and this is a beautiful example of government working to help people that need our help. And I just thought it was amazing, and I was so proud of the city of Chattanooga for doing this, and I wanted to make sure that we did this publicly so that each one of you, I mentioned it to one of our councilmen that I won't point to or smile at, and he wasn't aware this was going on. That was before we passed the bill. So much is done every day that we don't realize all those people we employ do. And so when you weren't thinking about the IT department one day, they were doing an amazing thing. So let's let them be more specific about that. Donna?
Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much. We've been excited about this project, and we really want to thank the support we've received from our representatives and our senator and how they've helped us out throughout this process. But all of this was brought to us by Skylar. If you want to come down and talk to us a little bit about that. And the program that was originally presented, it was already in play in Florida. It was an older version that was not really something that we could duplicate and use in its current state. And our team was able to take it and bring it into the web application it is today that can be spread across the state. So we're very excited about the opportunity to do that and help a lot of people. So, tell a little bit about what you did.
Sure. So I started another project to train first responders on how to interact with people who have special needs on a daily basis during calls and things that we go on. And while I was doing the research and development for that class, I met a gentleman from Pensacola, Florida, who was a dad, an advocate, and a police officer, and he developed a program called Take Me Home for Pensacola Police Department. And they were able to put the software on a disc, on a CD, and he handed it to me right then and there. And before I left the parking lot, I called the Chattanooga Autism Center, and I asked them if they would be willing to partner with me to present this to Chattanooga. And that's when Roddy Coe became involved. And Roddy Coe and I met. We got Chief Miller to introduce us to a couple of the police officers across Wisdom Street there. I'd never been in that building before in my life. And Chief Miller got us in there over to meet with the chiefs over there, and we presented it to them. And I'll never forget Chief Roddy telling me, well, you know, my job's to shoot holes in it, so I'm gonna take a look at it. And he did, and he really liked it. I felt very pleased with his response, and it wasn't long. I really didn't even realize how fast it was moving that IT was already working on it. And then they told us that they couldn't use the software. They had to rewrite the whole thing from the ground up. And what a job they did. I was flabbergasted when I saw it. It is absolutely amazing. And that's, the rest is history, so.
So we have several people in the room that worked on the project. Corinne Sapp has been our project manager, has led the way, has been the trailblazer, really, getting everyone involved, spent countless hours putting it all together, working with the team, and just making sure this came to the success it is. And Ken's representing our development team, it seems. So Ken Kitchen is here. He worked with it, helping in the development and working with his team, leading that team into the success. And then we have Sergeant Holloman here, who is with the Family Justice Center, and he is the one that now goes through and vets everything that comes into the system and makes sure that it's good information, so when people are looked up, that it's the right information and things that can be actionable and find the right people to help out their loved ones. And do we have anyone else in the room that I'm missing? Anyone else that's worked with Take Me Home? We have a lot of other people from IT here supporting the crew, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. And as I said, we really do appreciate what everyone's done.
Great.
Thank you so much. These folks just did an amazing job, and it was so interesting for me to see the enthusiasm they had to accomplish this. So it's important for you all to know that. We would like to present the bill to Skylar, if that's okay, and then you all can figure out where it goes. I have promised the IT department that if the mayor doesn't and the council doesn't see fit to give it to them for their office, I'll get another one made and put in their office.
Get another one made.
Okay. One of the interesting things, I think, Corinne and Donna, you came up for the bill signing, didn't you, with the governor? And so you all have been to some of those. You get very little time. It's meaningful for the photograph you get afterward, but during the process, you sort of feel like you're at a cattle call. Well, that's not Bill Lee. Bill Lee said to me, Mike, what is this? I remember someone talking about how wonderful this bill was, and what am I doing? And I explained it to him briefly, and the people, your group here from Chattanooga was up there and participated in that explanation. He was overwhelmed. And he said, man, this is why I ran, to help people. So you all accomplished that. Senator Gardner-Hire did a great job in the Senate. The only complaint I had in presenting the bill is someone stood up, and I won't mention who, and said, you know, I'm just really sick of you getting neat things done for Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And they hadn't paid a lick of attention. The whole purpose in passing the bill is that because the city of Chattanooga had agreed to let every law enforcement agency in Tennessee have it free. And so I had to go back through that and explain it. And he said, oh, well. And I thought, golly. So that's the only complaint we had about it. I did have a call last week from a city about as far from Chattanooga as you could get, wanting to know how to get signed up. And I'm referring them to your IT department. We've already got people from Georgia who live in Ringgold and frequently are in Chattanooga because of that. We've had people from the counties around. Hamilton County is almost geared up now, and theirs is going to be a fairly active and very large database. So this is really something good, and it's a pleasure when we run for office. We hope to do something good. And I wanted you all to realize that you had. And And that was the hard stuff, to fund this, to agree to spend the money. You know how tight money is. I'm looking, I know each one of you, and I know how tight you are with money. But this is something that's going to benefit a lot of young people that are non-communicative and a lot of dementia patients. And I'm just proud. They say they had it in other states. They had it in other states, but if you've looked at it, it's a Yugo versus a Ferrari. And so Chattanooga really leads the way. In fact, I did tell the mayor, now when this thing boots up in the cop cars in Obion County and in Johnson City and in Memphis, it needs to come up, City of Chattanooga, on that screen, presented to you by the City of Chattanooga. And I hope they've done that, because that needs to be done. People need to know that what we're doing here matters. So to Senator Gardenhire, he said he didn't want to say anything, but you sure?
Yeah.
You got to say something.
Mike has 15 bills that he can introduce each session. I carry 10 of them because they're the easiest thing in the world to carry, because Mike's done all the work and gets it passed in the House, which is the hardest part. And I just come along and say, well, this is Mike Carter's bill. Let's go ahead and approve it, and it gets done. But seriously, there was a lot of work went into it from everybody up and down the line on this to get this passed. And it's a really good deal, and y'all need to be complimented. The IT department, Mayor Burke needs to be complimented for working with Mike and I on this. So we're very pleased that this happened, and y'all have done a good job. Thank you.
Maybe we give this to Captain Phillips, is that okay? Skylar, do you mind to come down? This is actually the beginning point. It took me about 6 months into this project to realize who set the spark that later led to the brush fire. And so if you know Skylar, he's a great guy, and you would expect this from him, but still, he needs to be recognized. This is a great thing he's done. It's a great thing for all the people that will be helped by this, and I'm just so proud of the City of Chattanooga for doing this. So thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this is just a testimony to the employees that we have in the city of Chattanooga, the caliber of people, especially in our fire department. And I just appreciate these two gentlemen for what they do at the state level for us. And we appreciate your service there, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say, Skylar, well done. I've had the pleasure of working with Skylar on another project that I think is going to be very special. And to our IT department, thanks for taking a project like this and making it real. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work. And to our elected state leaders, thanks for going for a cup of coffee. I mean, that's where great things start. I wish we encourage everyone to go have a cup of coffee. Look at the wonderful work that can come out of it. Thank you all.
Councilman Mitchell?
Mr. Chair, I would like, if there's other comments or questions about this program, the Take Me Home program, I'd like to yield to them at this time. And if not, I'll go ahead and jump in there.
Yeah, would someone like to really tell us again what it's about? Because I remember the presentation several months ago, and it's really great to know that it's been recognized outside our own community by a really great team of employees we have here in the city. So please share that, because it's something that's near and dear to me.
As Representative Carter was saying, if someone is found and can't tell the police officer their name or who they are, they have to go to jail and wait for whatever the procedure is. So the way that we do this now is that we solicit people who may be in the population of the nonverbal or the dementia population, and we encourage them to have their loved ones placed in this database, so that if they ever do wander, they ever get out of their house or leave for whatever reason, then if a police officer picks them up, that police officer can then look up, type in their name, their face, what they look like, the height, the street they're on, any of this information that they can put in this system, it pulls up like a slideshow essentially of the person's picture. Then they can look side by side, and they can look at that, and it has their address and tells them exactly where they live and what's going on and why they're, why they may be out and about. I actually have a meeting with the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities to try to do this, for them to help get the word out on this, hopefully this week. So it is a great thing, and for the people, the nonverbal population, it can really be a lifesaver. So do you have any specific questions about it, how it works? So I mean, that's it. It's
Okay, we have Councilman Gilbert.
I'm sorry I didn't get the request with Jerry. I apologize, Jerry. But I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I should. I want to thank you because several, like last year, for example, Miss Atkins, she left in a truck and they could not find her. And her children asked, is there anything that we can do what you've done? And if it was in place then, maybe it would have helped. But I definitely appreciate it because if you deal with people that have dementia, it's something to see your loved ones go through some things. So I appreciate it.
And that's an excellent point as well. It can work in reverse. If we have someone call in, my loved one has gone missing, they can send that out and say, here's what the person looks like, just be looking for them, things like that, where they may be and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. First I want to say thank you. This is what doing the work is. So many times people come with the problem, and once we see the problem, it's kind of hard to find the solution. You found the solution, and I salute you for it. And we need more people like you in our communities up here, just finding solutions. And that's, I think, what we dedicate our lives to try to find the solutions to make America, Chattanooga, a better place. And you took that step, so thank you for that. And the other thing is, I wanted to find, if, say, a resident reaches out to us and say, hey, I heard about this program, I want to get my uncle signed up for it. Who do they contact? How do I tell them? Is there anything set up?
It's on the City of Chattanooga Police Department's front homepage.
Okay.
It's on their very front page, or it's also on their app that you can go to and pull it up on there as well.
Thank you so much.
A Google search, quick Google search for Take Me Home Chattanooga pops it up very quickly as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
No other questions. Councilman Mitchell.
Well, if you're going to make a comment on this, keep going.
No, go ahead on, please.
Well, this is actually, and not trying to steal your thunder or anyone's thunder for that matter, but this is actually a little bit about the next subject that's coming up. This is going to be a little bit about the next subject that's coming up.
Oh, okay, the
So-
next presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for all you do. I know it means a lot because I work with the communities with disability through the Mayor's Council and the Chattanooga Area Employment Consortium, and I know as a group, it means a lot. Being the father of an autistic son, it makes you feel really good to know that you have programs like that because things can happen beyond your control.
Absolutely.
And being an adult son, it's good to know that should something happen, you have programs like this. And I just admire and respect all that you have done to bring this forward to the ID department and the recognition on the state level to get this out so that all people can have this service, if you will, and feel comfortable about knowing that their loved ones will be taken care of should something happen where they get lost or just wander off.
Thank you, sir.
So God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to address now or go
Yeah,
next?
this will be fine. And thank you, Mr. Chair. What's coming up next, it really helps make this a special day, and I know how I like to speak to my colleagues as if we're partners in getting things done. And Take Me Home, there was a great partnership by a senator and a representative. And before we transition totally, I would like to ask Representative Carter to come up and say something at the start of what the state of Tennessee is working on as it relates to human trafficking. You got the right people here today
Well,
to
thank
present
you.
the paper to.
Yeah, that's a little, not prepared. Let me get my thoughts together. Last year, Senator Gardenhire and I went to a dinner or a luncheon. The group was 49 to 1. Am I saying that correctly? A great group of ladies. There were about 5 men there. And it was a very interesting discussion that day about certain women's issues. And they had a speaker who was an attorney from New York. And she had convinced the state of New York to pass a human trafficking expungement bill. And let me explain what that is. As Councilman down there and I used to put a lot of people in jail for different things. If you were ever in human trafficking, you're going to have a rap sheet from here to Dalton, Georgia. And then the ones that were in it a long time go all the way to the Florida line. There are, however, so many groups now that are working in human trafficking and having such monumental success in some of this. I literally had a lady that we had put in jail many times who successfully exited human trafficking and is a great member of Chattanooga now. And I wanted to name this bill that I'm about to talk about after her, and we just decided that maybe that wouldn't be the appropriate thing to do because people would be stunned. And so we just didn't. But she was literally dying before my eyes every time she would come into court. She was thinner and weaker, and she was just dying. And so I locked her up. I gave her 2 years. I thought at least she will be fed and some person won't be trafficking her. And so we go to this luncheon, and this wonderful young lady, an attorney from New York, talks about this bill. And I thought, you idiot. If anyone in the world should have thought of this, it should have been you because you've put them there. If they get out, like the lady you know that did and conquered it, doesn't she deserve a fresh start? Well, after it, I waited to meet this lady, and she said firmly, Tennessee will never pass that. New York, California, and maybe Washington State are the only states that's done it. I said, that guy there will get it passed, and pointed to Senator Gardenhire. We ran a bill that if your criminal history is based on an event after human trafficking has entered your life. Now remember, human trafficking is not going to be a prostitution charge. It's going to be a drug charge. It's going to be a theft charge. It's going to be an assault charge. But all of that is related to their human trafficking. Now we have 2 or 3 members of the House. Jim Coley, who is a professor at Memphis State from Shelby County, he with Mary Littleton from Dixon County in the House, lead the charge on human trafficking. And I don't mind to tell you, they've made me feel like such an idiot as a judge. I look back to things I said, things I did. I'm a little ashamed of some of those. But they lead the charge, and they have really educated us about this. When we filed the bill, we had some pretty significant pushback. If you think about it, wait a minute, you're going to take robberies off of someone's record? Well, it's not, you have to understand the dynamic they were in. They weren't doing this, they were doing what they're told or forced to do. And I used to say to these mostly men, if you had been there, you would have done the same thing. And so we had a little debate about it and went to see the governor about it, and everyone was concerned about it. But the end day in the House, it passed 98-0. So this bill literally gives, so many groups are now having great success with human trafficking. Let me leave you with this, and Chattanooga's got some great groups here that are doing that. But number one, it is far more prevalent than you think. And it is scary when you dig into it and read the research and talk to these people, how much this is going on. It's a real serious problem in Tennessee. So a lot of groups are working to make sure that it doesn't happen. People don't get trafficked. What Senator Gardenhire and my bill did said that if you've made it out and if you've gone 1 year without a conviction, then you can apply, and in 1 year you can have all of those charges resulting from human trafficking taken from your record. I won't call the lady's name, you'd know her, Councilman, but she stopped me on the street one day. I didn't recognize her. I had no idea who she was. That's how much she had changed. And that day she made a comment to me. I was stunned. I said, "You've made it." And she said, "Well, sort of, but I can only work for the lady that runs prison ministries because of my record. No one else would give me a chance." And so this bill is for her and the ladies like that. So a little surprised that that was on your all's agenda today, but there were 3 states in the nation. I don't know where it is now. Do you, Senator Gardenhire? When I met, or when we had the luncheon, and the lawyer from New York said, "Tennessee will never pass this." And she just didn't know Tennessee, and she didn't know us. And so that's okay. We weren't offended by it at all. We just took it as a challenge. So number one, it was the right thing to do. So why wouldn't people from both parties do the right thing? There's no party when it comes to right and wrong. There is only right and wrong. So took a little convincing of some people that it was right, but they just need to understand it. And I think some of them need to go home and talk to some other people and see the other side of it. But it passed, and that was the group in Chattanooga. I think, ladies, you all know it, called 49 to 1. If you all aren't familiar with it, they're a fantastic ladies group here in town. They're very powerful. Chattanooga Women's? Yeah, Chattanooga Women's Fund. They're a great group, and that's where this originated from. Again, Senator Gardenhire and I didn't have the thought. A lawyer from New York did, but we said, yeah, Chattanooga and Tennessee needs to be on the list of people that have done that. So that's what we did. So we're a little surprised today that to see these ladies here and that was coming up. It's a serious problem. So whatever you can do to help it. We passed, in the 6 years I've been in Nashville, we've passed 37 bills on human trafficking. And so if you don't think it's a problem, it is. Each year we nibble at it, and we get better and better and better at it. We build a wall, and they go around it. So we build a wall there. They dig under it. So we have to, we're still having to work. But it is an extraordinary problem. Jim Coley from Shelby County, who really started this in Tennessee, has a diagnosis of dementia and is retiring. And so I hope by some chance he may get to see this, and you all realize what a great man he is and what a great thing he's done for human trafficking in Tennessee. Be glad to answer any questions if you have them. That's just
Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes, thank you very much. I think we may be answering all the questions in our presentation.
sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, my colleague. You're very familiar with the Mayor's Council for Women. We've been in existence here for about 5 years dealing with policy matters, both locally and at state level, and we appreciate the work that you all have done with us. What we do is we study issues, very pertinent issues, one of them being human trafficking. We're dealing with health care, we're dealing with all kinds of issues, and every year we have a conference, a statewide policy conference. It happens in February, and we're having one this year, and bringing the 49 to 1. Every year, the Women's Center on Policy Research in Washington goes in the areas of healthcare, economics, justice, empowerment with women. And of the 50 states, we come in 49 at the bottom of women's rights, of women's abilities, of women's empowerment. And so that's what one of our partners, the Women's Fund, is dealing with. And that's where the 49 to 1 comes from, going from 49 to 1. And we're working really hard. Over the past 5 years, we have published a number of papers that are on the website dealing with health care, dealing with teenage pregnancy, dealing with all sorts of issues, and we welcome you to read them. Some of them have turned into legislation. I happen to chair the Mayor's Council for Women, and my co-chair, I'm very happy, is here today, Representative Joanne Favors, along with, my university professor that I say taught me every bad thing I know, and that's Tommy Brown. You taught me all about social justice and how to get there, and I want to thank you for that, ma'am. You've done a wonderful job. Today, the council, Mayor's Council for Women has a presentation. Since you fund us in some ways, we thought we would come before you to show you that we're doing the work you've asked for. We're nonpartisan. The issues that we deal with aren't Republican or Democratic, they're human, and we keep it that way. So this is heavy-duty study, and a number of the women are here from the council. Thank you very much for being here. They mostly represent our Justice Committee. The chair of our Justice Committee is Brenda Freeman Short, and I think, Brenda, you wanted to say a few words before we make the presentation.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. I'm Brenda Freeman Short, and I co-chair the Justice Committee along with Terry Lee. And we're just honored to be here, and Councilwoman Burrs has just talked to you about some of the things that we have done. And I think today the presentation that we have will give you even more knowledge and appreciation of what we, under the leadership of the city, are doing. I would like, if I could, to ask those that are here from the Mayor's Council for Women to stand up. Stand up, give them a hand. We have several, thank you, we have several hundred women that do attend. I wanted to just give you our mission statement, which you probably know. It's to affect policies that create positive change for women in Chattanooga. And our vision statement is every woman in Chattanooga will have the opportunity to live her best life. And so today, the Justice Committee worked very hard under the leader of Anna Protana Biggs and Mimi Nichols on human trafficking, and they're going to present a dynamic, some dynamic information I think that will help you. They've worked very hard on this, and I learned so much just their recent information that they put into the white paper. So at this time, I'm going to ask them to come and do the presentation, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us. I'm Anna Protano Biggs, and this is Mimi Nickel. We are grateful that you are here to listen to some of the information we want to present about human trafficking today. I think it's very timely to come straight after Representative Carter and be able to talk about how extensive this issue is in this community and how prevalent it is. And this white paper is really a call to action for government officials and citizens in Chattanooga to look at an issue that really affects a marginalized group of women and children in our community who have been labeled as criminals instead of victims and survivors. So we put together a white paper with a large community and a whole team of us working for over 2 years. And the paper is titled Reframing Prostitution in Light of Sexual Trauma, Exploitation and Trafficking. And so I have a presentation with narration on it that we'd like to play first.
Sexual Trauma, Exploitation and Trafficking. Co-authored by Anna Protano Biggs of Hamilton County's Mental Health Court and Mimi Nickel of Love's Art. Hope you can hear.
Could we put the volume up just a little bit?
The work group was established to review existing policies on prostitution in Chattanooga, raise awareness, and establish a framework to reframe prostitution in light of sexual trauma, exploitation, sex trafficking, and adverse childhood experiences. We established a methodology for our research. First, we gathered introductory research materials on the laws, policies, and lived experiences of women in prostitution and sex trafficking in Chattanooga and across the state of Tennessee. We then broke into two teams. One team conducted stakeholder interviews with those working in this area. The other team conducted interviews with incarcerated female survivors and women in street prostitution to gather stories and information on lived experiences. We discovered we have a problem here in Chattanooga. Sex trafficking is a booming industry. For those of you unfamiliar with the legal definition of sex trafficking, it occurs when someone uses force, fraud, or coercion to cause a commercial sex act with an adult or causes a minor to commit a commercial sex act. We know that women are disproportionately more likely to be targets of sex trafficking and prostitution. We know that the average age of entry into prostitution is 15 years old as a minor. Of 35 women with lived experience interviewed in Chattanooga, 13 entered into prostitution and were sex trafficked before the age of 18. Any minor induced into commercial sex is a victim of sex trafficking, regardless of whether or not the trafficker used force, fraud, or coercion. We therefore have many women in Chattanooga who are trafficked as minors and age into prostitution. These women are underserved and often labeled as criminals rather than as victims and survivors. So what is the big picture? 1 out of 10 children in America are sexually abused before the age of 10. That's 1 in 10. And 72.5% of those children were abused by family members, not strangers. Over 95% of women in prostitution and sex trafficking were sexually abused as children. Adverse childhood experiences, known as ACEs, are traumatic events occurring before age 18. They include all types of abuse and neglect. They lead to neurological changes to the developing child brain, how a child thinks, feels, and responds. The impact of ACEs on persons in prostitution include complex trauma, STDs, shortened lifespan, suicide, unemployment, severe mental illness, parenting problems, criminal behavior, PTSD, homelessness, substance abuse. As you can see, there's high utilization of health and social services. What are the long-term effects of sexual trauma to women and children in Chattanooga? Some are listed here. They include feelings of guilt and shame, sadness, confusion, anger, low self-esteem, depression, body image issues, anxiety, substance abuse, and PTSD. This is the great state of Tennessee, known for the foundation of country music, Elvis, and Davy Crockett. It is the centerpiece of the Smoky Mountains as a great volunteer state. And this is the great state of Tennessee as of 2016. According to a recent 2018 study by Enslavery Tennessee, 85% of Tennessee counties are affected by human trafficking. This is Chattanooga, the greatest little city in America, known for its aquarium, its mountain regions, the Tennessee River, beautiful scenic views, Bessie Smith, and so much more. And this is Chattanooga. This is a map of the National Human Trafficking Hotline, cases reported in 2017. You can clearly see the heavy red line for our region, coming up through Florida with the Atlanta-Chattanooga corridor. Right now, many of our victims of sex trafficking and prostitution are arrested and treated as criminals rather than victims and survivors. In 2017, we arrested 51 women in street prostitution at an average annual incarceration cost of $289,000. In 2018, we arrested 29 women in street prostitution at an average cost of $138,000. We have several non-profits and government agencies here in Chattanooga whose work focuses on prostitution and sex trafficking, whether it's legislative, advocacy-based, or survivor services. They include Street Race Tennessee, newly formed, which replaces Second Life, Women's Fund of Greater Chattanooga, Love's Arm, which provides street outreach, 24/7 helpline assistance, 12-step recovery, jail classes, and a 2-year residential holistic recovery home. Partnership for Families, Children and Adults, the Family Justice Center, Hamilton County's Mental Health Court Sexual Trauma Track for justice-involved survivors of sexual trauma, the Next Door Chattanooga, and Cadence. As a result of our research, the work group recommends a multifaceted approach. We need to focus on ending sex trafficking, a form of modern slavery, and empower women and girls in Chattanooga by focusing on the evidence base surrounding trauma and reframing prostitution so that women are seen as victims and survivors rather than criminals. This requires a coordinated community response. Funding and City of Chattanooga leadership will be crucial in the early years of building a viable long-term solution. Some of our recommendations include support of public-private partnerships, the creation of a city task force or interagency council. This task force would create synergy with existing community resources, allow for the cultural shift necessary to reframe prostitution in light of trauma and sex trafficking, and plan, coordinate, and accelerate our city's response. A three-pronged strategy is suggested, which includes 1, preventative measures, 2, education, and 3, supportive programs. For preventative measures, we recommend increasing public awareness through a targeted marketing campaign, which responds to local cultural needs in a competent and inclusive way. Empower girls and women, target the stigma associated with prostitution, and decrease future demand. We would recommend the adoption of local ordinances and resolutions by the City Council to support the work of the City Task Force. A number of other communities have adopted preventative measures through these regulatory mechanisms. For education, we would recommend a viable framework for educating first responders and those who make first contact with women in prostitution and sex trafficking that leads to faster intervention. And for supportive programs, we would recommend programs and mechanisms to encourage long-term recovery, resilience, and well-being. How can every woman thrive, flourish, and live their best life in Chattanooga? Reviewing the research, it is clear there is a need for a changing focus from supply to demand, with a community-wide reframing of prostitution in light of sexual trauma, exploitation, and sex trafficking. There are many initiatives around town already addressing this in some way, but very few complete solutions. We need to address the adverse childhood experiences and extensive sexual trauma that women in prostitution in Chattanooga have faced. We need to better target resources and assistance. This coordinated community response is necessary if we are to build a strong and thriving community here in Chattanooga that is representative of all and ensures basic human rights.
So that concludes the presentation. We appreciate, comments and questions. We're really focused on what we need to do in this community to empower women and children.
Vice Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I never did see or hear about how many victims do we think are caught up in sex trafficking in Chattanooga right now?
I can address that. We really can't come up with a concrete number because it depends on their reporting. We did give a reporting of how many had been arrested in street prostitution, but we also have victims of people who are being worked in hotels, in massage parlors, as well as through escort services. So to get a concrete number, it's really hard for us to do. I'm Mimi Nickel with Love's Arm, and we work with persons in all of these areas. But until they actually report or they are arrested, we don't have a concrete number. We can give you an estimate.
Yeah.
I would estimate on any given day here in Chattanooga, we probably have an estimate of 110 to 125 women being worked in prostitution and sex trafficking.
Okay, thank you.
That would just give you an estimate.
And you had a couple of slides that talked about reframing prostitution. Explain a little bit about what you mean about that.
Prostitution historically in our country has been framed as criminal activity. And though we understand it is a criminal activity and people should be held accountable for their crime, reframing it is looking at the historic incidences and abuses that actually led people into prostitution to begin with. And so our greatest statistic on that is the understanding of childhood sexual abuse and how that has grown rampant in our country over the years. We have seen an increase in trafficking victims and women who are entered into this. Actually, it begins with that childhood abuse.
On the women that you interviewed, and I think it was maybe 25 what you had on your slide, I may be wrong, and I don't know if I saw or not, how many of those had sexual trauma?
Well,
Maybe
and that,
before
there
the age of
again,
10.
there again, when we did our ACEs study with them, there were 33 that we did the ACEs study on, and many of them were residents at the next door who were coming out of, they were in work release from the Tennessee State Prison to women who identified that they had had prostitution activity in the past. That's where some of that base came from. The others were people on the streets that we actually engaged in with who were willing to give us that information. Not everybody is willing to admit it, to admit that they experienced childhood sexual abuse because of the level of trauma they're already in. But 18 of those 33 that were interviewed either on the streets or at the next door admitted to experiencing childhood sexual abuse.
Now, 18 out of the 33, is that what I'm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then on the preventative measures, you had adoption of local ordinances by city council. Do you have specific ordinances in mind, or?
We have several from other states that we looked at that have been adopted in local municipalities like Atlanta, Pinellas Park, Florida, on the demand side. And those ordinances would be placed in places to deter the traffickers themselves and the patrons of prostitution.
Do you have that listed in your white papers, the actual, I guess, proposed ordinances?
We made reference to several of them that we thought were interesting. We're happy to bring more of that in front of the City Council. We did not attach them as appendices to the white paper at that time, but certainly we have an idea of some of the things that have been done, like she said, in other places that have really helped to focus on this issue.
Could you email those to us?
Yes, sir.
those
We'd be happy to.
proposed ordinances?
And they're related to massage parlors, they're related to the hotel and hospitality industry, they're related to places where people frequent that are in this activity, so they could actually see signage and things posted to let them know you are being noticed here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We have Councilman Ledford, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this work. Last night I was with some Chattanooga State students, and we were talking about, and one of the questions was, what do you love most about your job representing the people? And I said, it's the education component. It's in being informed and then sharing that information, and then hopefully through the job that we have, making a difference. And this is incredible work that's being done here, and I thank you because it's extremely important. I'm reading that the majority of women in prostitution are homeless. Is that true? And it makes me wonder, because homelessness has been something that we keep addressing, and I'm wondering, with that and the component of, I think, PTSD, thank you, at what part are we combining the two together to get, I guess, more action that we need to see? I've been very interested and very vocal about seeing the changes that we all keep talking about, and I want to help. I think we all want to help. This is something that we're all very passionate about, and we're here with you. And what's next? That's what I wrote down. I said, really, what's next for us, and how do we help to echo my colleagues' comments?
Well, I'm here as a peer and a service provider, and part of what we do is provide housing. We provide a housing model. We have a cost-free holistic recovery home that's a 2-year model. We partner with Thistle Farms in Nashville and are implementing their model of care and healing here in Chattanooga. We have 6 beds in our house. We currently have 5 women. Of those 5 women, every one of them experienced childhood sexual abuse and ended up in addiction and prostitution as well. That statistic I can give you real clearly because I see them every day. And we really, I would say we have to address housing first as part of this model. We have concluded that because of the demand in our area, a lot of people are not familiar with what a high demand we have here in Chattanooga. Because we're on that corridor going from south, northeast, we have a huge issue here. And we have determined, we have a waiting list all the time, and we could use 3 houses at least on a minimum here in Chattanooga, housing 4 to 6 women apiece, just to begin with. So, but we partner with other agencies and segueing them into services, as well as each woman in our house has their own PTSD counselor who specializes in sexual abuse and PTSD therapy.
So,
I think what we're wishing to do by bringing this to the attention of you all today is to really try and pull everyone together with some government-led approach. There's a lot of great community work and community partners out there doing a lot of this work day in and day out with people. And, you know, we really need that coordination and that dedicated piece of education across the board. So I think that part of what we all as community providers are starting to understand is that, you know, we're only really at the beginning of understanding that full iceberg of trauma and how it impacts our community, how it impacts the clients that we serve. And so there's a lot of that huge education piece in regards to first responders as well. And so we really just encourage you to we'll happily send out these specific ordinances and resolutions, but we encourage you to take a look at some of that, and for government officials, together with the community providers already working in this area, to look at how we can pull together to tackle this for everyone in Chattanooga.
yes, great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Burris.
Yeah, I want to thank you. I'm really proud of you. You worked hard. A lot of people worked hard. Anna, I don't know if you know or not, is head of the mental health court here and works very hard with some of the outliers of this. But let me say a couple of things. First of all, one of the things I've learned from the work of you all is that very often we stereotype what a trafficked person looks like, and that's dead wrong. We are bringing, in February, Women's Council is bringing this topic to the fore, and one of our main speakers is a woman, very middle class, whose daughter was a violinist and a sports enthusiast at her high school, and one day just didn't come home. She's the same woman that took down Backpage, and she's going to be speaking at our conference. What you will find in the data is that it's one of the highest growing industries, white collar industries in our country, something like $50 billion. And we may not be doing as well as we could going to the user end. There are some communities that expose the johns, expose the massage parlors, instead of punishing the victims. I have to give kudos to our Chattanooga Police Department. Councilman Ledford and I have met. The Chattanooga Police Department has a program meeting with hoteliers, and we do that on a regular basis to talk about the human trafficking. Don't just think this is taking place at low-end dive kinds of places, particularly with the number of sports events we have here. Unfortunately, we, like many towns, can unfortunately order up whatever you want. I have the occasion to go through the Atlanta airport a lot, and as many of you, hopefully you've heard, the over and over again in the Atlanta airport and the signage that says, we want to let you know human trafficking isn't welcome here. There's signage in the Atlanta airport that says human trafficking isn't welcome here. I know that the Marriott Corporation has a lot of heavy-duty training on what human trafficking looks like, and it doesn't look like what you would think. That's too easy. It could look like any of us. So kudos to the people that are doing a good job. I know among those are the Chattanooga Police Department, and I think I would welcome, as a policymaker, I would welcome any other input. I know y'all have worked long and hard. We ought to make it very unfashionable to human traffic here. Very unfashionable. Just not the in thing to do. And I think that's going to take PR. I think that's going to take outing the people that use these sort of services and making it uncomfortable to be here. Sisters, I can't thank you enough. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
See no other questions. I'd like to make my colleagues thank you for all the work that you've done, and I appreciate the opportunity I had to speak with y'all directly about what you do and the seriousness of this. Ladies, thank you for not only this, but for the work that you do through the Mayor's Council of Women. And Ms. Brown, Ms. Favors, thank you for the leadership, and you too, Councilwoman Burrs, for this great thing that y'all do for our city and rallying the women around it. So if that is it for today, we are adjourned till 6 o'clock.